Okay. All right, folks, it's 1:30, so in the interest of sticking to time for those joining us on the live stream, we're going to get going. Obviously, if any of you want to spend more time with Vlad, he's going to be around all day. And another word, don't forget the happy hour coming up after the last session today. Hopefully the Californian sun will stay up for us, and that should be a lot of fun. What's the saying? You can't improve what you can't measure, or something like that. So I think the next talk is going to give us a good chance to learn about the history of the project and how things are going online and with the community through a lot of the tools that Brad has built. Should be a lot of fun to find out. Area of interest close to my own heart, actually, because we have to do this for all the Facebook projects as well. Trying to understand how communities are going through the metrics that you can see coming out of those tools. I'm going to hand straight over to Brad.
Great. So yeah, like I said, here's the agenda. We're going to go through a little bit of history of D, some of the major milestones we've hit over the years. We'll talk a little bit about communication and why we are doing all these tools, and you can see the rest of the agenda there. So let's go straight into it. So around 2000, Walter built D, or started D rather, and I'm not going to read all of this for you, but so newsgroups came along pretty quickly. It wasn't until 2002 that any of the source code for the stuff was starting to become available. And even then, it was just the front end. And at which point, the GDC guys said, ooh, fun, let's start. Shortly after that, people started building more tools, the D Wiki. Linux port finally came around in 3 years after the beginning of the project. DSource started in 2004. Andre and Walter started getting introduced to each other, and well, the world was never the same. 2005, we started realizing that documentation is kind of hard, so we should kind of integrate these things. 2006, I was introduced to D and said, guys, we really need Bugzilla, because tracking things in these news groups, not a good idea. 2007, D1 came around. LDC got started. We had the first D conference. 2008, we had the second D conference. And D.NET was started as an experiment. After that, we added OSX, PSD, finally started moving things into source control. What a concept. And the backend source became available, so you can finally build the entire compiler tool chain from the release source, which, good idea. Visual D was started, another wonderful project. In late 2010, I started the auto tester so we could start getting automated tests, and we'll show that stuff in a few minutes. 2011, we decided that we needed a better source control management system, so we moved to GitHub. That was probably one of the best things we've ever done. 64-bit support came along. In late 2011, started doing auto testing of pull requests so we could finally start seeing, before we merged them, whether or not it was actually going to work. 2012, we had the forums were introduced. Now we had a bunch of mechanisms for talking and communicating. We had the first conference here last year, or 2012. 2012 conference. Don't remember what we were doing there. 2013, we improved our build processes quite a bit. We have a long way to go still, but we're getting better. Facebook started using D publicly, which was a major and wonderful announcement. And finally, we're here talking again and learning a whole bunch more stuff. So what's the goal of all this tooling? It's to help us communicate. Because if we're not communicating, we're not doing anything. There's a lot of ways to communicate. We'll talk about some of those in a second. There are other ways of communication through documentation, because not everybody comes to the news groups and the forums and the mailing lists and talks. We need to get a lot of information out to people, the websites, the D-wikis, etc. Communicating about code changes is also super critical. If without code reviews, we're not going to get good code. Without bug reports, we're not going to know about what's going on. So here's the list of where the news groups are. Here's the mailing list. Most of the people in this room had better be familiar with these already. If you're not, how did you find out about this thing? But personally, I find these far more interesting than actually our day-to-day written communication, because there are far more people that we don't know about than we talk to every day. So getting D-Lang up to snuff, getting the wiki current and well-maintained. These are super important projects. So thank you for everyone that has contributed to these over the years. Just as important as having current docs is not having old docs. And this is one of those thankless tasks I think we really need to improve on. The old wiki probably needs to be taken down at this point. We've started moving everything over. Some of the really, really old stuff from D1, all right, people are still using D1. That can't go away, but it really needs to point to the fact that it is old. So if any of you guys maintain old stuff, take a moment to make sure that it's obvious on the website or wherever it is that it is old, because people find those, try to use that as current information, and it doesn't work. That's probably a user we just lost. We can't afford to lose very many people. Our community is just not that big yet. So every opportunity we can take to introduce users to current and useful information, we should take advantage of that. Andre's keynote yesterday was also really, really good. But there are things that we can be doing to modernize ourselves and to refresh our documentation such that it's really, really relevant and current and easy to digest. So if anybody wants to help with that, please reach out to me, reach out to anybody else. Let's improve things. So the bulk of this talk is going to be about the auto tester. This is a system that I wrote because knowing the state of the code is something that's super automatable. It's super easy. And there's just no excuse not to have good continuous build systems in this day and age. The most frequent question I get about the auto tester is, why don't you use some other product? And the reason is as listed here. At the time that I wrote the system, and this has changed a little bit in more recent times, there was no system that could support multiple projects spread across multiple repositories on multiple platforms and produce a unified result set. You could set these all up. You could create 10 different projects for 10 different platforms, build the whole matrix all completely manually, look at it all completely manually and say, okay, yes, things still work. Not good. Travis CI most recently introduced multi-project support, multi-platform support, and I'm going to look at that harder. Maybe they've matured enough to where we don't need our own, but I doubt it's still there. Some other things the auto tester does is it constantly watches GitHub or is notified by GitHub in some cases about pull requests changing, about branches having merges occurring, users being created, that kind of stuff. And the most recently added thing is automatic merging. So anybody that has pull permissions, and there's a dozen or so people that can do that at this point, can go set a flag in the auto tester that says, once this thing finishes testing, just go ahead and auto merge it and close the pull request out and stop testing it. This is a really nice feature that we've started using more and more. In fact, I'll get some screenshots of that in a moment. About a year ago, I guess it was, I added support for multiple projects so that we can start testing our release branches. Today, that's a totally manual thing. I have to set it up. In sometime in the next year, I can't promise exactly when, each of you will be able to create projects for your own work, have them tested on the auto tester. If it takes me more than a year, I'm sorry. Some interesting things to note here. None of the builds in the screenshot are broken, but if the build breaks, the tab turns red. So unfortunately, I didn't take a snapshot yesterday when GDC was broken because that would have been handy. It's got a little diamond there. It's got an open pull request. If you hover the mouse over it, it'll pull up exactly how many open pull requests GTC has. I believe it's 3 at this point. And this snapshot was taken a few days ago. Today it's up to 180 something. People have actually been working while we're here. Stop that, pay attention. So for every branch build, you're going to get a number of little bubbles like this, one per platform. Not a lot to say about this. That last running 5 on the side there is from most recent to oldest of the last 5. If for some reason your project is too new to even have last 5, I forget what it says, but like NA or something. So there are 5 possible states for a build to be in. not yet started, which is blank, running, passed, failed, or aborted. Aborted means that we were in the process of building it, but something changed to make that no longer useful data. Maybe the branch had a merge occur, or the pull request had a change submitted to it. You won't see aborted very often, but it will occur. So the page that most people spend time on is this one. It's all open pull requests, barring synchronization issues between GitHub and the pull tester. If there are mergeable tests, they'll show up at the top. If there aren't, that section will disappear and it'll be just the rest of them. If there are no pull requests, one day we may accidentally hit that. That entire page will be empty and just say no pull requests. Each of those little links off to the most obvious thing. So the first column will link off to GitHub. The second one will link to history about that pull request. I have an example of that in just a second. The merge column is a toggle. So if you click on yes, it'll turn to no. If you click on no, it'll turn to yes. For that to work, you have to be logged in. You log in with your credentials. Did I skip that slide? Yeah, up here at the very, very top of the page is a login, logout thing. So this has changed over time, and it's worth discussing because this is a relatively recent change. Tests which have the auto merge turned on are built with highest priority, then branch merges, then the others there. Basically, it means that things that are useful, or the most useful, will get done first, and so on. And each platform is independent there, so it doesn't try to build the entire merge for every platform before going to the next one. It scattershots them through the history for each given platform. For each build, you can get an awful lot of data about it. More data than most people want, but it's all there. What machine it was built on, how long it took for each build step. And there's one useful thing here. Occasionally something will hiccup and you want to force a rebuild. So if you were logged in and have build permissions, you can click on the deprecate link there, which will force that result set to be obsoleted. And as soon as a build machine frees up, it'll rerun the tests. This is the history for every single build. This was one that happened to be captured while it was in the process of being rebuilt. Looks like the pull request had changed from one commit to another, and it completed on one platform, and the rest are in progress. So one thing that a lot of people are concerned about are the number of open pulls. And if you're not looking at the data carefully, most people just won't be able to see this, is how fast things are actually proceeding. We're actually doing a whole lot of requests per week. You'll see peaks up there as high as 100 pull requests were completed 1 week. On average, it's 30, 40, 50 range. So it's a decent number of pull requests merged every single week, and the rates haven't changed a whole lot over time. Obviously there are spikes when people do nice little bursts of activity there. It's kind of cool to see. This is some old work, so it only partially works, which is why it's currently not linked on the website. However, the page exists, and I've been working on it and bringing it back into current. These are some integration features with GitHub. So if you go to GitHub today with these GreaseMonkey scripts, you will see test results being pulled from the auto tester. The one on the right there is overall test branch status, and the one on the left is an example of the test results for a specific pull. I've got the URLs backwards. Sorry about that. I'll fix that for when we publish these things on the website. So this is also another area that's changed a lot over time, is just how quickly does the auto tester respond to changes to the environment. Today, it's within about a second. In fact, it's more often than not, it has recognized the change before I can commit a change and go look to see if it sees it. So push events, which include all pull request updates. Any time somebody opens a pull request, GitHub calls it back into the auto tester, and it starts testing as soon as the build machine frees up. There's backups to almost all of this with polling GitHub to say, what's the current state of the world? And it compares current state with its recorded state. It goes, oh, I must have missed an update. Let me fix that, and starts building tests. There's a few things that don't have that backup. Almost every one of those events that might possibly be missed will automatically be fixed the next time an event comes in. So if for some reason, like the pull request open event is dropped, if there's a change to the pull request, that event will come in and go, wait a minute, I don't know about that one yet, and fixes itself up. There are currently 11 machines in the build fleet, one of which is donated by Daniel. The rest I've donated myself. One Daniel, one Adam, and the rest by myself. Amazon was donating several of them when I still worked for Amazon, but when I left, I shut those down. Let's see, anything interesting else on here? The last column there is the version of the client. Not terribly useful for anyone but me, but it is useful enough for me to leave it on the public display. And that very last one on the very bottom, last pull update, is an indicator of how recently something has changed in GitHub. The last time somebody did a pull update of some sort. It's a good indicator of if the syncing between GitHub is working or not. All of the last heard from and those dates, if they get too old, turn bold so you can see that something is considered questionable or broken. The one that's highlighted there is Adam's machine has been acting up, so we've taken it out of rotation for now until we have a chance to fix it. For every single build tester on that page, you can click through the build machine to a detail page. It'll show predictable history, all the branch builds and all of the test runs. I find this page a little bit interesting for watching the durations. So if the time it takes to test starts increasing, either something has changed about the code or the builder itself. The builder might be slowing down for some reason, or we've regressed the speed at which the compiler executes. So what's next for the auto tester? First off, no promises. Some of this stuff might not get done. It might not get done in the order here. If you are interested in helping with any of these features, come reach out to me. Probably the biggest thing that I want to fix is that the way projects are structured right now is very, very rigid. There's a feature that I want to add. This feature will help the GDC guys quite a bit. We'll be able to check out the GCC source from the GCC mirror and layer that on top of or underneath the GDC patches and build them together. Right now, it requires a bit of manual work to sync versions periodically when they drift too far out of sync, and things start failing just because code drift has occurred. Today, the construction of what you build against in terms of any of your dependencies is something I have to manage, and luckily, there's no projects other than DMD and GDC in the system, so managing them is not too hard. Once I start allowing for another feature, which is user-defined builds, understanding what and controlling the dependencies that you build on top of will be very, very critical. So if you need to build on top of DMD version 2.50 instead of 2.60 for your project, then you need to be able to do that. And you also don't want to accidentally let dependencies slip in. You want to be able to restrict the environment that you build on top of so you don't have stray dependencies that you're not aware of being creeping in. That auto merge feature really needs to be in the GitHub UI so you don't have to switch over to the auto tester just to say merge me later. I'll get that done shortly. That's a really powerful usability increase. User creation of projects is something I'd love to have because there's a lot of projects out there that really could benefit from auto testing, and D support for auto testing and a lot of the continuous integration systems just isn't very, very solid yet. So I'll provide that for everyone. Better test results tracking. Today we have just one binary. It passed or it failed, and digging into why is a real chore. So one of my future projects will be to track every single build as an individual test and say, this test has been passing, this test has been failing. So we'll get a lot more historical data, as well as just discoverability will be a lot higher. More metrics. Metrics are fun. I love metrics. So, I mentioned time is one of the things I watch. Right now, it's a very manual way. You kind of glance at numbers. Bringing down numbers is very hard to spot trends. But a graph, very easy to spot trends. So we'll get some of that done. Build uploads. The most frequent build or change request I get for the auto tester is, can we get nightlies? At some point in time, we will have nightlies. It's a lot more difficult than it sounds like. Conceptually, it's a very simple idea. We'll fix some security issues. We've been very lucky so far. The community is a very good community. Nobody that I know of, at least, has tried to breach security on the system. Please don't. It makes my life a lot harder than it needs to be. And status notifications. Today, you have to go to the auto tester to find out if things are broken. I would really love to be able to let people sign up for notifications. Chances are very high I will use Amazon SNS. If anybody has any other suggestions that they would prefer, feel free to send me a pointer to it, or send me email. SNS is a super powerful system that allows a lot of flexibility that I don't want to have to build. We'll get for free just by using it. So there's a lot of people in this room that have contributed to these statistics, and you deserve a lot of thanks. I'm not going to read the names by any stretch of the imagination here, but this is all of the people that have opened pull requests, at least 2 or more in a given month for the last couple of years. And you can see the trend's very nice. It's been an increasing number of people. If the trend continues for the rest of 2014, we'll hit almost 200 people. That's amazing. That's great. A couple people are worth calling out. Daniel, who's in the back of the room over here, being number 2 for the last couple of years, and Kenji for being number 1 for the last couple of years, and by a good margin. Yeah. But even more important than opening pull requests is merging pull requests. And this is a smaller set of people. So I should mention on the previous slide, the number of open pull requests, that across the top is the total number of people. For a number of pull requests merged on this page, this is everyone. Every single person who's merged a pull request in the last 3 years. Not terribly surprisingly, Walter's at the top of that list for a couple of years. What's even more surprising is that Walter's not at the top of the list so far for this year. Those people are really stepping up, and thank you. Thank you very much. Any questions about the auto tester before we move on?
Right now you're running all the progress unit tests, for example. Is there a way to skip tests based on static dependency analysis?
Not in the auto tester. The auto tester's job is to test everything.
Can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. The question was, is there a way to subset or skip some of the tests in the current infrastructure? The answer is no. I can see value in it, and especially for individuals who are developing before they submit, just because you tend to be developing in a small, narrow area. It's a good idea. I don't have any off the top of my head suggestions on how we would accomplish that, but it's worth asking for. But again, the auto tester's job is to test things prior to being merged. And if we only tested a subset of things, we would potentially miss things and mismerge, or not necessarily mismerge, but merge and then break, which is kind of an anti-goal. That makes sense?
Well, if the dependency analysis is correct, then you wouldn't skip anything.
Say it again?
If the dependency analysis is correct, it would still be correct. You wouldn't skip anything that shouldn't be skipped.
And so you're saying there's some things that we could skip because of dependency analysis. True. There are things that we could prove has not changed, and not bother spending time working on that. If somebody wants to develop that and submit it, certainly be willing to entertain looking at that kind of optimization. for the most part, any given pull request doesn't take that long to run. On most of the machines, it takes about 5 minutes to build and test. On the slowest machines, it takes about half an hour right now. And there's some optimizations we can do in there. We could not wait for all platforms to complete. But yeah, really the best thing we can do to speed things up here is to close pull requests, get them merged. Far easier to do absolutely no work than to do all the work. I'd love to talk afterwards to get more ideas on what you're thinking, because I get the feeling I'm not thinking about the same thing you are. So, any more questions about the auto tester system? Got two questions coming up here. So.
Any plan to get ARM support for GTC?
There's been one gentleman, I don't remember who, was it you, that offered support of an ARM box to test on? Maybe not. Anyway, I would love to have more platforms supported in the auto tester. I'm not going to personally contribute that hardware. I've already contributed 9 machines. However, I would be more than willing to host them, or to either host them myself, or even more preferable, manage them remotely. I'll be glad to manage the machines. And integrating them with the auto tester is a matter of a couple lines in a database, or a couple rows in a database, no problem. So yes, there's definitely work to be done to expand the platform set, though. There's a lot of hard coding in what platforms are being built right now. But that's on my list of things to improve anyway.
Yeah, I was wondering, is the auto tester like very specific to DMD for both and the runtime and all that thing, or is it something that is reusable for other projects?
So when I wrote it, it was very specific. Back in 2010. In 2012-ish era, I started generalizing it to support multiple things, but it was still very compiler-oriented, and that's still true in some ways today. My goal is to be very generic. So that when I say support user projects, I really mean that. I want it to be able to support D, C++, Java, Perl, whatever. It's going to take time. I mean, this is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's a one-man show right now. Once or twice I've gotten pull requests from other people, and thank you very much for them. But only so much can happen. Any other questions? All right, I'm going to move on, and we can come back and ask more questions in a few more slides. So Andre stole my slide yesterday. Sorry. So this is pretty much the same picture, but I'm going to talk about something slightly different here, which is that while this looks bad in that the number of open bug reports is ever increasing, it's only a bad thing if you think that bugs are bad. Having bugs is not good, but knowing about them actually is. So, an unreported bug is a bug that's never going to get fixed until somebody else reports it, in which case it might get fixed at that point. So please, despite the fact that the numbers go up, submit bugs. There's only one way to get them fixed, and that's to know about them. The other bad thing about metrics like this is that humans are motivated by graphs, especially programmers. We love our graphs. We love manipulating graphs. Don't open a bug report just to close it to increase the number of bug reports that we've closed. I've seen people do this. If the company is motivating people by number of closed bug reports, they will actually go file 5 bugs instead of 1 bug, and then go close all 5 and go, yay, I fixed more bugs than that guy did. Promote me instead. Don't pull those kind of games. Use the tools for what they're good at. Use the system for what they're good at, but don't game the system. And not that I've seen anybody doing that, so thank you for using it appropriately. Other questions I've had about Bugzilla in the past is why don't we use GitHub's bug tracking system? If we were to start today, we might well do that. But when we moved to GitHub, we already had about, I think we were at 6,000, maybe 7,000 bugs at that point in time. Migrating systems around just at a whim is just not worth the hassles. By running our own Bugzilla system, we're not beholden to anybody else. We've got all the data. It's in a very usable form. We can introspect it. There's a lot of built-in value there. Any questions about Bugzilla? I don't have a lot of slides here, so I'd be happy to ask whatever or answer whatever questions people have to ask. But Donna in the back here.
This isn't a question, just a comment.
Uh-oh.
If you do the graph of open bugs that aren't from Verifile, you'll find that the curve goes down.
And if you do the same graph and take out enhancement requests, ignoring what people, I bet it also goes down.
Yeah, and the point of this is that Verifile, shout out to Verifile. He's been so diligent at finding bugs that he's reported bugs that we normally wouldn't find for years.
Yeah, no, that's a really very good point. He's probably our most prolific bug reporter. I haven't run per-user stats of that. He's pretty easy to do, and I'll do that and throw up a slide later.
He's done twice as many as anybody else.
Yeah.
He's done more than the next 5 combined, I think.
Yeah, and another thing that's worth pointing out here is that having a bug database is great and all, but it does need people that shepherd the database. Eliminating dupes, closing things that I've been waiting for in actual repro case. A bug report that doesn't contain enough information to act on it is not a terribly useful bug to have. Those are really actually worth closing at some point. If the person hasn't responded in 6 months or a year, chances are they're not going to respond for the next 3 years either. So might as well get rid of them. Sometimes closing a bug that's been open like that will finally prompt somebody into responding. If there are people out there that enjoy grooming through data stores, please do. Walter, you have a question?
More of a comment. For every yin there's a yang, and we have Verifile, who's the most prolific bug finder and poster. And although I begged him to come, he was unable to come. Kenji Hara is our most prolific bug fixer. So I just want to have a large thank you to Kenji.
Absolutely.
And not only that, Kenji doesn't pick the easy bugs to fix.
No, he absolutely does not.
The hardest ones to fix.
So, to essentially restate things, communication is what all this tooling is about. And computers are really good at a lot of things, and humans are really good at a lot of things, and we shouldn't confuse which are which. So, any other questions about any of the stuff we've covered anywhere in the talk, so feel free. Great. Well.
We didn't have any questions from the live stream, but we did have a special request to put out a shout for a great talk. So
thank you.
So it was much appreciated online. Oh, and we have one more over here.
Well, it's really 2 questions. This is sort of going back to the auto tester. First off, I'd like to congratulate you and say good luck for checking out the GCC mirror. I'm sure that'll take much longer than it will do to compile GCC.
No, because I cache the checkouts, so I only have to do a sync every time I do it, which takes a second or so.
In terms of hardware used towards the auto tester, I know you sort of brushed up upon how you go about linking in hardware to the auto tester, but in terms of donating it, how would people go about donating the hardware to this? And probably more importantly, what sort of hardware or platforms are you in demand for?
So the how question is essentially send me mail. There's a few steps that need to be done. Most of them are on my end. The actual configuration on the clients is very straightforward, assuming that it's a platform that we already support. Doing a new platform, all bets are off there. In terms of what platforms do I need, Windows would actually be useful because those 2 are the ones that I host at EC2 right now, and that's kind of expensive. Windows costs about 3 times as much as the Linux instances just because of the Microsoft tax. Any platform that GDC supports that isn't one of the major x86 platforms would be great. I'm not exactly ready to support that yet, but when I am, we'll need the hardware for it. PowerPC, ARM, etc. FreeBSD32 is actually one that I would love to have somebody donate, just because, well, reasons that aren't worth going into. In terms of what hardware I have in the system right now, go back a bunch of pages here. So at the bottom there, it's three BSD machines. The reason why there are 3 rather than just 2, because we only support FreeBSD 32 and 64-bit, and is that the 2 slowest machines in the system are my 32-bit FreeBSD machines. So I threw 2 at it to keep the throughput at least a little bit high. It's still the slowest platform by far. In terms of the type of machines these are, most of these are 2-core machines with 2 gigs of memory. And they vary in terms of what generation cores. The oldest machines being, I think, Pentium Ds, the current ones being whatever the most recent Intel hardware is. Because as soon as EC2 launched them, I started using them. They don't need much disk space. They do need memory. And just because the unit tests require that much memory to run it. Does that answer the question? Over here.
Someone just asked.
One quick second. Bigger hardware, definitely valuable. For a while, I ran this thing on a 16-core machine with 16 gigs of memory, and damn, it was fast. Go ahead.
Someone just asked if LDC was going to be added to the auto tester.
Yes.
All right.
I don't have an exact timeline for you, but yes. I mean, I intended to have it done a year ago. And it has the same basic questions as DC is what platforms. And by default, with the hardware I have right now, it'll end up being x86. And as other people donate equipment, it'll be other platforms.
One thing I've wondered from the beginning was like nowadays it's a bit more sophisticated, but it's essentially a quadratic problem, right? Whenever we merge something into DMD or Phobos or runtime, you test all the other pull requests again.
Yep.
Does that currently cause any huge problems? I mean, like we have like 100, 200 open pull requests.
Right. So
kind of works maybe, but like the higher integration rate of more pull requests, like this will really explode. Do you have any good ideas for that?
A couple. So to describe the process a little bit, because I didn't describe it earlier, every single time a merge is done to mainline, it invalidates all past results and starts over again. The alternative to that is actually what the Travis CI does, which is, roughly speaking, build the merge as it is in the pull request, not how it would be on the mainline. So that you invalidate nothing. It's a hell of a lot cheaper to do that, but it's also less accurate to do that. Because you miss merge conflicts. You can test for those and just don't merge if it has a merge conflict at the end of it. Personally, I'd rather throw hardware at it and build more of them. I think it's a more productive system that way. There's a couple things that we could do, which is some of it which is just build less. So if it builds on 50% of the platforms, go ahead and consider it a good build. All of they're less safe. I don't like reducing the safety of the system, so I'm less likely to do that. And then you.
Sorry. Have you considered taking, let's say, you had 2 or 3 auto merge toggled on, and merging all of them together so that you're testing the result of all of them, and you can merge all 3 instead of just merge one, then retest, then merge another one, then retest.
It's a reasonable idea. I have considered doing some of that. It definitely makes the system more complex. You select a set. If it doesn't pass, well, if it passes, great. No problem, sweet, merge them, assuming they've been set to merge. If they don't pass, you've wasted time. Then you have to undo it and go figure out which one broke. Again, it's a situation of complexity versus hardware. So at this point, I don't get the sense that the auto tester is a gigantic bottleneck. It's more the action of getting things reviewed and being flagged to be merged. The longest I've ever seen the auto tester have a open test that is buildable and mergeable is a couple hours, and that's only because somebody did a whole spurt of flag a bunch of them. And I don't think I've seen any of those real backlogs since I made the change to put auto merging ahead of branch building. But there's options in there. It's a matter of, is the complexity worth the value?
We could potentially do is take ones that have already passed.
Yeah, there are ways of reducing the risk there. If our throughput was being held back significantly by this, I would definitely consider them. Since the throughput's not really being held back, probably not going to do that at this point.
A lot of bugs would be caught if we included, for example, all the dub projects on the auto tester, and then we would, before we had a pull request pulled in, we would actually see which projects would it break. It would also tell us what's the impact of like potential breakages earlier on.
Right. The way I've had similar thoughts. The way I would handle that is in the future when I do support anybody creating a project is anybody that wants to have their stuff auto tested, feel free to create a project and have it auto tested. One of the things that we will gain over time is the ability to say, build me against most recent code. Most recent DMD or most recent GDC or most recent, pick whatever you want to build, or last nightly or last beta or So is that kind of give about the same thing you're requesting there?
Yeah, except I'm just worried about the scalability. So did you consider using cloud computing platforms instead of local machines?
And yes, it will require more machines, and as we need more machines, they can be added. So yeah, scalability is a problem with the system, but the nature of the system is it's going to have work to do. There will always be work to do, and prioritizing the work is important. Any last minute questions? Behind you. Yeah, whatever.
Currently, there is some pull request that requires change in other projects.
Dependent pull requests, yeah.
Yeah. Do you plan to create something to handle that?
I've been inching towards supporting that. So part of the system supports it right now. It's not enough of the system to expose it yet. But yeah, I would like that because while I think it's generally a bad idea to have dependent pull requests, there are occasions when you pretty much just have no choice. The downside being that once we support it, more people will use it, which means that the disincentive to keep the pull request separate goes down. But we need it, so it'll happen eventually. Yeah. In fact, we needed it for a pull request that was done during the conference. In fact, interesting statistic I pulled just before this talk, there's been 15 pull requests merged since the beginning of the conference, in a day and a half. Any other questions?
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Definitely a round of applause for that. And the snacks are here, and we'll be back in 15 minutes.